Right now at 6, Providence healthcare workers on strike for a 4th day, including a nurse who changed her mind after crossing the picket line.
I decided that I am going to defend my license instead of putting it at risk by working.
Plus, as the firefight continues in Southern California, an Oregon family who lost their business to a wildfire reflects on the long road to rebuild.
Taking that first step and keep going, and it will eventually happen, but it takes a long time.
And why a plan for a towering new thrill ride at Oaks Park isn't thrilling the neighbors.
It's a major disruption, and we have gotten no notice of it.
Good evening. Our top story at 6. It is day 4 of the Providence strike, with the hospital group now saying it is ready to talk with union employees at most of its hospitals. Thanks for joining us. I'm David Molko.
And I'm Christine Pitawanich. Bargaining plans include 6 of its 8 hospitals, but not the 2 largest. Joe Ranieri is live at Providence St. Vincent. Joe, fill us in here on the latest.
Well, the latest is that earlier this afternoon, Christine and David, the Providence filed a complaint against the Pacific Northwest Hospital Medicine Association, claiming that the union hasn't been bargaining in good faith. But earlier today, I did speak with a nurse who crossed the picket lines last week till she realized where she really needed to be. Nurses and doctors on strike at Providence hospitals across the state continued picketing for the 4th day on Monday. Among them, nurse Celine Javuric. She's been working at Providence for nearly a year. She crossed the picket line and worked the first day of the strike.
I received an email from Providence saying that basically, you must show up for the strike. If you show up to work, you are just going to work throughout the strike. If you don't show up, you will be replaced.
But Celine told me she decided to join the strike after being asked on Friday to perform duties she wasn't qualified to do.
So I crossed the picket line last Friday. And I realized that it's a very unsafe working condition, and I decided that I am going to defend my license instead of putting it at risk by working.
A Providence spokesperson wasn't able to address the concerns she faced last week, but said they sent out information ahead of the planned strike to their nurses and doctors. Providence laid out how they were going to handle the strike and how they should be prepared for if they show up to work or if they decide to strike. That included letting them know that they had contracted with a company to provide highly qualified and experienced replacement staff. Now the focus is going to be trying to get a deal with all of the 6 clinics and 8 hospitals who are still waiting for a new contract. Now back to those concerns with the nurse from last week about her working in unsafe conditions at Providence Portland. Now, a spokesperson with Providence told me this: Oregon's Board of Nursing puts the accountability on the nurse to decide if they are competent to take on an assignment. They absolutely have the right to refuse that assignment, and Providence always honors that request. Now, they went on to say Providence would never put a nurse in a position where they felt their license was in jeopardy. David and Christine, back to you.
Yeah, we'll also hear from a registered nurse in the St. Vincent's ER, plus viewer reaction, the Providence CEO, that is right after this newscast on The Story. Thanks, Joe. Appreciate your reporting there.
In your headlines, a Washington County jury has found a man guilty of kidnapping and sexually assaulting a homeless woman who also uses a wheelchair. A warning, the details here are very disturbing. The district attorney released video showing some of their 2023 interaction. Prosecutors say it shows 54-year-old Timothy Fitzgerald speaking with a woman on a sidewalk in Beaverton. Then he physically assaults her before taking her to a nearby parking lot where he sexually assaulted her for 40 minutes. A street sweeper noticed, and Fitzgerald then ran away. He was arrested a short time later. His sentencing is scheduled for March.
Second story that's tough to update you on here. An Oregon City man accused of kidnapping and sexually abusing a 13-year-old girl from Canada more than 2 years ago has reportedly pleaded guilty. The CBC reporting 43-year-old Noah Medrano entered 2 guilty pleas in a Portland courtroom. Medrano admitted to traveling to Edmonton, Alberta twice in 2022 to meet the girl and to film himself abusing her. The second time, prosecutors say Medrano disguised the girl's appearance, hid her in his car, then drove her across the border to the U.S. Medrano will be sentenced in April. He faces a maximum sentence of life in prison.
And crews got to work this morning on a project to renovate a memorial honoring Portland firefighters. Crews removed the 4,000-pound ceremonial bell from the David Campbell Memorial at Southwest Alder and Burnside. The 150-year-old bell has been there since 2000 after it spent decades in a tower downtown, then later at Portland Fire's Station 15. But recently people have vandalized it and there's been drug activity. The bell stayed in storage, or will stay in storage, until the plaza is renovated. The project is still in the fundraising phase, and at this point, there's no timeline for construction.
And the I-5 Interstate Bridge Replacement Project could now include a cap over part of the highway through downtown Vancouver. Today, Congresswoman Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez announced a $30 million grant from the U.S. Department of Transportation. The LID, as it's called, would cover the interstate just south of Evergreen Boulevard, reconnecting downtown with Fort Vancouver and surrounding neighborhoods. The expanded crossing would also include a light rail station, public spaces, and pedestrian and bike paths. We are still waiting, by the way, on the final design for the $6 billion project. Matt?
All right, David, thank you very much. You know what? We are in the gray all day long here in the valley, right? But the coast was not. The Cascades were not. Sunset at the Oregon coast was just spectacular. These scattered high clouds moving on through. So, yes, it was a nice day in parts of Oregon, a very gray day in the Willamette Valley, including the Portland area. Tomorrow, fog in the morning again and down to 32. The morning lows going forward will all be down around freezing. So we've got frost in the forecast almost every morning. Shouldn't be too big of an issue, but be aware. Mostly cloudy at noontime, but tomorrow, unlike today, I think the clouds will break up a bit. We'll get a little warmer, climb into the mid 40s. So again, a little bit of improvement there. As I said, colder mornings all week long. By the end of the week and the weekend, we're seeing lows here in Portland down in the upper 20s. Less fog beginning on Wednesday. Rain, however, unlikely for the next 7 to 10 days as this dry pattern continues here. It also continues in Southern California. The National Weather Service in Los Angeles issued this, which I've never seen before. They're calling it a particularly dangerous situation for the area inside that purple line there because the Santa Ana winds are picking up now. We've got fire weather warnings out throughout the LA area and clear down to the east of San Diego. Guys?
Thank you for that update, Matt.
It feels all too familiar. We're going to talk about those wildfires burning. Crews from the Northwest are helping out alongside some 14,000 other first responders. It's such a team effort there.
It absolutely is. And on Friday, a Marion County strike team saved a home during their first 24-hour shift. They posted this photo on their Facebook page. Meantime, Southern Californians really bracing for another round of extreme fire conditions overnight and through tomorrow. 50-mile-per-hour offshore winds with even higher gusts are expected in the mountains north and west of downtown LA. So far, 24 deaths have been confirmed in the Palisades and Eaton fires. More than 12,000 buildings have been destroyed, and more than 92,000 people remain under mandatory evacuation orders.
In Southern Oregon, a family who lost their veterinary hospital in the 2020 Alameda fire, well, remember this year, right, says they have a small sense of what so many people in California are going through.
Libby Dowsett shows us how they have fought their way back after years of support from their community.
These raging flames and embers were the last thing Glenn Winters saw as he drove away from his business, Phoenix Animal Hospital, back in September of 2020.
Different community. It doesn't make it better or worse. It's just different now because there are people that we all knew that are gone. They moved on.
His employees helped evacuate the handful of animals at the hospital, including a 35-pound tortoise. An employee loaded into the front seat of a pickup and raced to the owner.
Not just a little tortoise, he was probably about that big around. Truly terrifying. They were scared, but they were so relieved that they were able to get their tortoise.
My daughter had some PTSD because when I came home, the building had caught fire by the time I got home, and we were in evacuation for our house.
When he came back, just his sign and his American flag were left. He knows the distress people in LA are feeling.
I can't imagine losing a house, all the memories, all the artifacts from previous generations. It's incredible. I just can't imagine going through that.
Daniel Aldrich is the co-director of the Global Resilience Institute and lost his family's home during Hurricane Katrina. He said survivors, just like the Winters family, need to depend on the community to create a new normal.
Do we just go back to the way things were? We have nostalgia for the past. Things were better in the past. Let's build as they were. Or do we start encouraging a different approach, more space between houses, clearing out vegetation within 50 to 100 yards of the house furthest from the center.
He said the key is rebuilding slowly with more intention.
Do we just go back to the way things were? We have nostalgia for the past, things were better in the past, let's build as they were. Or do we start encouraging a different approach, more space between houses, clearing out vegetation within 50 to 100 yards of the house furthest from the center?
For the Winters family, the community stepped up.
I had people writing and sending me checks. You took care of my animals. It's time for us to take care of you.
We have to think and recognize resiliency does not mean keeping things as it was. It's got a very static perspective. It means we're building a new sense of normalcy, a new sense of daily life, where people have those connections and work together.
Libby Dowsett, KGW News.
By the way, KGW has teamed up with the Red Cross to support wildfire victims in Southern California. If you have the means, please consider donating. Scan that QR code, look for the links at kgw.com. You can also, of course, donate at any U.S. bank branch. So far, more than 300 of you have contributed, together raising over $42,000. Wow, exactly. Thank you for your generosity and for your support. Developing this evening, St. Helens High School teacher Eric Stearns, who faces 18 sexual abuse charges against 12 different people, will remain in jail for the time being.
Evan Watson explains why the case is once again being pushed back.
Eric Stearns and his defense attorney, Jennifer Myrick, are pushing for a new judge. Today, Stearns waived his right to a preventative detention hearing within 5 days, opting instead to stay in jail until a court decides whether he should or be able to get a new judge in his case. Eric Stearns is a choir teacher and cheerleading coach at St. Helens High School, accused of sexually abusing students and adults over many years. His defense attorney wants a new judge over complaints about court filings and how the current judge has handled procedural matters. Stearns will now wait in jail until a new judge rules on the motion to disqualify Judge Bradshich. The case was previously delayed on Friday because Myrick said she was sick. That means alleged victims and their families have now shown up twice, ready to testify against Stearns in an effort to keep him in jail until his trial, only to be turned away.
To the victims who have shown up, I do apologize for any delays. Mr. Stearns has constitutional rights, and the court has to make sure that those are upheld. And I assure you that at whatever release hearing that happens, your voices will be heard.
I talked with an attorney representing 3 of the teenage victims. She tells me that 2 of them were prepared to testify in court today, sharing their experiences. Another young girl left the courtroom in tears, frustrated as this case drags on. In St. Helens, Evan Watson, KGW News.